Chapter 9. Jack had first met Bishop Lamberton on the open road shortly after the massacre. Having concealed dozens of newly orphaned children in the woods, Jack and Quinn had set out to hunt. After all, empty bellies needed to be filled. When the bishop's carriage approached, they had tossed their bows and full quivers into the brush to conceal that they had been hunting on monastic land. The bishop had been kind. He bade them not be afraid, and gently pulled the truth from Jack. It did not take Jack long to realise he had made a powerful ally. Jack led the bishop through the woods to where he had hidden the children. Together, they called on Abbot Matthew at the monastery and obtained permission for Jack and his band of youthful exiles to hide in the woods. On another visit, the bishop had arrived when the MacVie brothers had been practising swordplay with sticks, their favourite pastime since they were lads. He had left soon after, only to return again later that day with swords for each of them. "You have the skill, my son, which the good Lord has given you," the bishop had said when Jack solemnly wrapped his fingers around the hilt of his new sword. "Now you have the tools, which I have given you." On his next visit, the bishop had brought 5 black masks and 5 shirts of gleaming black mail. And so, the saints were born. Jack and his brothers became highwaymen for a higher cause. By robbing the English nobility riding north into Scotland, Jack provided for the children in his charge and contributed toward Bishop Lamberton's first concern, fighting for Scottish independence. As Jack and Isabella approached the bishop, he made the sign of the cross and blessed them both. Bishop Lamberton smiled at Isabella. "Are you well, my lady?"
"I am, Your Excellency."
"And I trust my friends have shown you every due respect?" Jack cringed when he remembered Alec's suggestion to throw Isabella into the hole, with Quinn's approval. He also remembered his stolen kiss and sarcastic addresses. He closed his eyes, waiting for Isabella to confess all to the good bishop, but she merely smiled.
"They have all behaved like perfect gentlemen."
He looked down at her. Her eyes locked with his and did not waver. Bishop Lamberton cleared his throat, snaking Jack's attention. "We have a situation. You were right not to leave the lady defenceless in the wood, but she cannot stay here any longer." Jack pressed his lips together. He wished it otherwise, but he knew the bishop was right. An English lady gone missing in Scotland meant trouble for everyone. "What is your plan?" "We must return her to her father," the bishop stated. Jack nodded. "I will take her." "You, an exile and thief. That is a truly dreadful idea. The only thing worse would be to include your brothers in your folly. Then you can all be captured and hung together. Aye, I'm sure Rose would be thrilled by your idea." Quinn stepped forward then. "The good bishop does make a point, Jack." "Abbot Matthew will take her. He will tell Lord Redesdale that the lady was found by them in the wood, and kept safe and guarded within the monastery, which, by the by, is where she will sleep tonight." Bishop Lamberton turned to Isabella and smiled. "The less the good abbot has to lie, the better. Although to combat the tyranny of men, even the godliest must bend the rules," he said with a wink. Then he offered Isabella his arm. "Come, Lady Redesdale. You may bid farewell now to your valiant rescuers. I shall take you to the monastery myself. You leave tomorrow at first light." The bishop had a firm grasp on Isabella's arm as he walked her toward his carriage. Panic seized her. She jerked away. "Is there something the matter, my child?" the bishop said, turning back to look at her with questioning eyes. Her mind raced. She had no answer for the bishop. Certainly, she knew she should be relieved. She wanted to go home. Did she not? Then she met Jack's dark eyes and knew it was he who had fixed her feet to the ground. He was like no man she had ever met. She thought of the children he had saved and how much he had suffered. He was still a thief, a commoner, and a Scotsman, but he was also a hero. Her hero. "Lady Redesdale," the bishop said. She tore her eyes from Jack's and looked at the bishop. "We must away," he urged. "No good could come from you staying here a moment longer. No good for anyone." he said with a knowing look at Jack. She nodded and bit her lip to fight back the tears that had suddenly filled her eyes. That was it then. She was to say goodbye and never see Jack again. She would return to Berwick, trapped within the walls of her home, where she would wait for her wedding to Hugh. She was Lady Redesdale after all, and English ladies did not marry thieving Scotsmen, no matter how compelling or forbidden. Lady Redesdale! She jerked her eyes once more away from Jack's.
"Forgive me, Your Excellency,"
she whispered. Then she turned back to Jack and dipped into a low curtsy.
"Thank you,"
she said before she turned and followed the bishop. Bishop Lamberton climbed inside and offered her his hand. She reached out, but then her breath hitched as someone grabbed her from behind. She jerked around and saw a flash of Jack's black eyes the instant before his lips claimed hers, and the world fell away. Her soul cried out, knowing it had found its mate. His lips moulded to hers. His scent engulfed her. She longed never for the moment to end. She wrapped her arms around his neck and gave herself over to him. She did not doubt at that moment that the angels had put her in Jack's path, but they were not in heaven, and men made rules that controlled her life. Jack tore his lips away, his breath coming in great heaves. "That will have to be enough," the bishop said behind her, not unkindly. It could never be enough. Jack stepped away, his black eyes burning through her soul. She sat beside the bishop, all the while never breaking eye contact with Jack. She watched him as the carriage pulled ahead. She traced every line of his broad shoulders and strong features into memory. "Drink your fill, my lady. You will never see him again." Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to enjoy more videos like this one, click the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. See you next time out in the Highlands.